FBI informant, but he's still a gangster and about to be caught in the middle of a Colombo Civil War.
November 18th, 1991, Greg Scarpa is going out of his house to get into his car to go somewhere. His daughter, Linda, and his granddaughter get into another car, and they're going up their street. At the end of the street, there's a van blocking the cars. He drives around the van, and guys jump out. And they miss him, and they fire at the car carrying Linda.
They bullet riddled that whole car.
They knew by that time they missed Scarpa, and they took off. Now, you attack an organized crime member, I don't know how anybody would not expect them to retaliate, especially when their family was involved.
But the feds don't want to lose their inside man in a law enforcement goldmine.
And I told him, I said, Greg, we've known each other for a long time. I know what you're going to do. And I said, I've got to tell you that if you retaliate, my guys are going to be out there, the police are going to be out there. If you get arrested, you know, that's the end of the game. You're arrested. Nothing I can do about it, nor will I. He said, it is what it is. You do what you got to do, I do what I got to do.
So 3 weeks later, Greg, the Grim Reaper Scarpa, looks for revenge against members of his own family.
Scarpa is out with 2 or 3 members of his guys, and they're driving around Brooklyn looking for targets of opportunity. It just happens to be in December. They drive past Vinny Fusaro's house, and he's outside hanging Christmas lights. Scarpa shoots Fusaro, and the other guys open up on him. Fusaro's instantly killed in front of his house, hanging the Christmas tree lights. The next day after Fusaro gets killed, Black Sam Nastasi is in his social club. The arena guys jump in there and kill him in the club. It was a retaliatory move for the killing of Fusaro the day before. They're shooting at each other, maybe on a weekly basis.
With the old guard gone, low-level gangsters are now battling for power, killing each other in a war over who will lead a new mafia.
A civil war within the Colombo family turns the streets of Brooklyn into a slaughterhouse.
The other families have never been through wars like the Colombos. I know quite a few people that got killed. The Colombos are known as the most violent.
It was a very treacherous time in New York City where they had to be on the defensive and on the offensive. And at the same time, law enforcement was trying to prevent the killing and bring them to justice.
There's no question there's a lot of tension out there. There's a lot of FBI agents, a lot of NYPD out looking around.
None of the other families were happy about it because it was bad for their business.
We'd be driving in the neighborhood and have nothing to do with the Colombo War, and they would pull me and other guys out of my car and strip search us in the middle of the street. They would tear the cars apart, looking for guns. If I had to go rob a bank and I had to have guns in the car so we can go rob a bank, or go steal a car so we can go rob a bank, we couldn't do that because there was too many cops in the neighborhood.
In the Colombo Wars, Greg Scarpa is playing on 2 teams, as a Colombo footman and an FBI informant.
In the meantime, Greg Scarpa is telling me what's going on. Not that he's killing people, he's not going to tell me that. But he's telling me other hit teams on the other side who were out there looking for people. And as a result of his information plus surveillances, we stopped a number of shootings. We found several locations where they had guns stored, where hit teams hung out, where they had lists of people they wanted to kill.
In other instances, we were accelerating cases that we had been building methodically to take them down prematurely just to take these people off the street and bring them to justice.
The feds close in on the 2 warring Colombo factions.
There were about 60-plus members of the Arena faction arrested, 60-plus members of the Persco faction arrested. Victor J. Arena was arrested, as was his underboss, Adamato, and they were convicted and each received life sentences.
Virtually the upper echelons of all of the families have been taken out in New York City. Entire crews and families have been taken out. It's a very bad time for the mob.
Eventually arrested as well as Greg the Grim Reaper Scarpa. In 1993, he receives a life sentence for committing multiple murders. He dies in prison a year later.
Carmine Persico still maintains the position as boss, and he will be until he dies, the boss of the family. For a year and a half or more, closer to 2 years, the war went on with a total of 12 members and associates killed and 18 members, associates, and some innocent bystanders wounded. The Colombo War was one of the most bloody, if not the most bloody, internal wars in La Cosa Nostra in the United States in the 20th century.
It always comes back to control. These internecine events like the Colombo Wars was really all about an individual attempting to wrestle control. The end result is that there really is no winner.
The Colombo Civil Wars bring that family down from within, but law enforcement's got another of the 5 families in its crosshairs. The Lucchese's and their underboss, Gaspipe Casso.
Gaspipe Casso is tipped off that a major indictment is coming down against him. And he's tipped off either by his undercover mafia cops, or he later claims he was also tipped off by somebody in the FBI. And for almost 2 years, he's on the lam.
But in the winter of 1993, FBI agents finally catch up with Casso at his girlfriend's home just across the bridge in Mount Olive, New Jersey. They arrest him on charges of murder and attempted murder.
Casso was arrested in 1993 and agrees to cooperate with the government sometime in 1994.
Now that he's starting to talk, he spills everything, including an unbelievable story about 2 New York City police detectives.
I had law enforcement on my payroll, certain. I had them looking after me.
Cops.
Yeah, the cops.
What were their names?
Lou Ippolito and Steve, like him, he's got a long last name, Kappas.
Caracappa?
Yeah, Caracappa, whatever it is. I can't say it all the time, you know?
But Casso's past deeds are so horrific, the feds are having second thoughts about cutting him a deal.
It's my belief that the prevailing sentiment amongst federal prosecutors was that 36 or 37 murders was too much, and that maybe they had gone too far.
Casso's deal to cooperate with the government unravels, leaving NYPD detectives Ippolito and Caracappa untouched. The mafia cops seem literally to get away with murder.
Ippolito and Caracappa end up retiring from the police department. Louis Ippolito moves to Las Vegas. He writes a book called Mafia Cop, in which he sort of talks about his history being a New York City police officer, but having family members in the mafia. He goes on television, and Jimmy Heidel's mother just happens to be watching. She sees him and thinks, she recognizes this man. This is the man who came looking for her son years and years ago, the day he disappeared.
She immediately went out and bought a copy of Mafia Cop, and in it saw photographs of both Ippolito and Caracappa, and then was absolutely certain that these were the 2 people who were outside her house the day that her son Jimmy disappeared.
The mafia cops may have retired as hitmen, but they're not home free. When the mother of a former mob associate recognizes her son's killer, a former NYPD detective in the Casey family is born, writing his book on